Talk about something that could seriously shake up how we all write software tests. Cypress has this brand new command. It's called cy.prompt, and it's powered by AI. Honestly, if you're a dev or a QA engineer, you're going to want to pay attention to this. So let me ask you something, and I bet this will sound familiar. Does it ever feel like writing and maintaining all your test code is just slowing your team way down? It's a huge pain point for so many of us, right? Well, that's exactly the problem we're going to dive into today. Okay, so here's the plan. We're going to start with what I call the automation bottleneck. Then we'll meet our new AI test partner, cy.prompt. After that, we'll see it in action, go over some rules of the road, and wrap up by talking about what all of this really means for QA.
All right, let's jump right in. First up, the automation bottleneck. We're going to talk about the common headaches that come with creating test scripts.
And these hurdles, they're pretty big, right? You often need to know the syntax inside and out. And those really complex user scenarios, man, those can take days to automate. It's a huge barrier if you're a manual tester trying to move into automation, and at the end of the day, the whole development pipeline just slows down. So the big question is, how do we smash through that bottleneck? Well, this is where we get to meet our new AI test partner. Get ready for the game-changing system.prompt command. So what exactly is this thing? At its core, cy.prompt.run is an AI-powered command that literally takes your plain English descriptions and turns them into actual runnable Cypress code. Think about it. It's all about bridging that gap between the idea in your head and the code you have to write to test it. You know, the best analogy I've heard for this is to think of it like a bilingual translator. It's totally fluent in your language, English, and also in the technical language of Cypress. You just tell it what you want, and boom, it handles the translation into perfect code. And that right there is the magic. From plain English straight to a test that actually runs. You get to just skip so much of that tedious manual coding in between. Okay, that's enough talk. Let's actually see this thing work. In this next part, we're going to walk through a real-world example to see how you go from just a simple prompt to a perfect test. So let's imagine you're testing an e-commerce site like Amazon. You start with a super simple prompt, something like add item to cart and proceed to checkout. The AI just takes that phrase, figures out all the Cypress code it needs, finding the right selectors, clicking the buttons, navigating between pages, and then the test just runs. It's an incredibly smooth workflow. Okay, this is obviously super powerful, but, like any new tool, you gotta know the rules and best practices. So let's dive into some essential guidelines and expert tips to make sure you're using it right. First things first, some of the basics. You're going to need Cypress version 10 or higher, and you have to make sure the AI features are actually enabled. Also, it really shines when you give it clear, unambiguous language. And one really important thing to remember, this is still an experimental feature, so you probably don't want to rely on it for your production tests just yet. All right, let's talk do's and don'ts. Definitely do use specific language in your prompts. And always review the code it generates. Think of it as a really smart assistant, not a complete replacement for you. On the flip side, don't rely on it for everything, and maybe steer clear of using it for those super complex, tricky edge cases for now. So you want to get the most out of this, right? Here are a few pro tips for you. First, be really specific. Instead of just saying click the button, try something like click the blue submit button. It helps the AI a lot. You can also combine multiple steps into one single prompt to test a whole user flow. This is what makes it an absolute beast for rapid prototyping. Here's a little memory trick for you, just to keep the main idea in mind. Prompt perfect tests. Your simple prompts, with a little help from the AI, help you whip up some really solid test code. Okay, so we've seen what it is, we've seen how it works. For our last section, let's zoom out a bit and talk about the bigger picture. What does this all really mean for the future of QA?
Now for the million-dollar question, can you use this in production? Well, since it's still experimental, the short answer is probably not just yet. It's fantastic for speeding up your work, for prototyping, and for generating that first draft of code. But, and this is a big but, you always need a human to review the code before it becomes part of your official test suite.
Here's another great question I hear a lot. How does it handle dynamic elements? The stuff that might not be visible on the page right away. This is actually where the AI is pretty darn smart. It's clever enough to automatically generate commands like scroll into view in the background, just to make sure that element is visible before it tries to interact with it. Pretty cool, right? When you step back and look at it, cy.prompting really feels like a paradigm shift. For the seasoned pros, it's a massive accelerator. For folks who are new to automation, it just blows the doors wide open and makes it way more accessible. It's truly a win-win for the whole team.
And that really brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with. Tools like cy.prompt, they're just the beginning of this wave. So the real question isn't just about this one new command. It's bigger. It's about how AI is going to fundamentally reshape your team's entire approach to testing. Something to think